Hi there, and welcome to another video where I'm going to talk through one of these legacy army lists and give you my opinions on it. My name's Dan. I'm a veteran Warhammer fantasy player. I did compete in a few tournaments in Warhammer Fantasy and won a couple with my Skaven, small ones, not massive ones. And have been doing competitive Age of Sigmar for the last sort of 5 or 6 years. Podiumed again at a couple of small events. I'm just not very rich in terms of money and time, so I can't really keep up with the current meta, which is a bit frustrating, but never mind. On to vampire counts. Now, the first thing I'd mention about the vampire counts is that they've been very, very clever, much in the same way that they have with the Skaven, in terms of allowing you to create a list that reflects a decent amount of narrative structure. So you can be really characterful with the lists. So we'll talk about army composition, then we'll talk about the faction special rules, and we'll jump around the content of this because vampires are an interesting faction because although, as you can see from this list, they're not divided up into their old sub-factions. So for those of you who aren't aware, vampires had several bloodlines. So there were the Alarmians, which were my favourite, who were kind of a bit distracting. They looked very similar to humans. They had like alluring musks, and you know, that's me doing a sexy dance very badly. And that was kind of their shtick, really. Then you had, was it the Necroarch, I think, or something, that were... or am I referencing something from another role-playing game? I'm not sure. Who were like master wizards. You had the Strigoi, who were like bestial and had been overtaken by their vampiric inner demonic sort of nature. You had the blood dragon, who were strong, had lots of martial prowess, and just loved bathing in mounds of corpses. And there were the von Karsteins, who were sort of representative of nobility and power, and so they had a lot of sort of controlling dynamics. In the list, you have to have one wizard. See page 4. One wizard. Sorry. I was looking at that confused as though I haven't already read it. It's going well. So the general must be a wizard. And that wizard is general. Should that wizard die, your army starts to crumble. Basically, the mechanic of the vampiric undead is very similar to the Tomb Kings in that nothing ever runs away and it just gradually crumbles into dust. If there's no wizard in the army, apart from vampires, if the general dies, the vampires have this thing called... we'll talk about that in a sec, actually. So the army composition is pretty much as you'd expect. You're allowed a vampire count, master, necromancer, or Strigoi Ghoul King per 1,000 points. You're allowed a couple of White Kings, Banshee. One thing I would mention, actually, is if you look at the artifacts and the vampiric abilities and stuff, you can build all of the autarchs, and because of the mounts that you're allowed, you can basically take Neferata, take that model out of AOS and bring it into this faction, and use magic artifacts and mounts and stuff to give it rules similar to that which you'd expect. So that's pretty cool. They're trying to be really inclusive in terms of what models you can use. And you got White Lords. So White Kings are just slightly better versions of White Lords. You know, we'll talk about those as we go through. Core, there's no minimum. on anything, so you can fill it out with a ton of zombies, or you can go for a ghoulish sort of skirmishery thing, or you can fill out 500 points of bat swarms in your 2k list if you want, which is funny. And skeleton warriors are just really super reliable, and due to being able to resurrect stuff, they're pretty survivable. The vampire lords do have, are we calling them vampire counts? Sorry, the vampire counts do have the ability to just summon tiny units of zombies all over the place, which you look at that and you initially think, oh, that's a bit rubbish, but then you think, well, actually you can summon them in a pretty wide arc and you can just get them to get in the way of stuff. So you just basically summon screens all the time that your opponent's got to deal with, and tiny units of zombies are just going to be a massive pain in the backside. So I actually really like that mechanic. I'm glad they don't make it like more powerful. I think it's really useful just to protect your main army. Graveguard are wicked, Black Knights, you got all that kind of stuff. You can have some Vargeists or Terrorgeists here. If your general is a Strigoi Ghoul King, if not, you Vargeists become rare. You can have Terrorgeists, and which are sort of zombie dragon-y sort of things. Blood Knights are lovely, love Blood Knights, and I'm probably going to be rebasing all my what are they called, Soul Blight Grave Lords on Square to fit them in this. You can take a Battle Standard Bearer, which you kind of want to do. A lot of undead have this rule here, Indomitable, and what that basically means is, so essentially you do combat as usual. So we're talking about break tests and how stuff crumbles. So you do combat as usual. In fact, let's go to the special rules, because that's where this is really contained. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? I can't find it. Where's the actual rule where it says everything crumbles? Hold your ground. Da, da, da. Oh no, it's a universal special rule, isn't it? I think. Where is it? Unstable. Yeah. So unstable means, they're immune to psychology, they're unbreakable, so you can really only ever get them to give ground. Everything at least causes fear, which you really need to remember, because I've seen so many battle reports so far where people have essentially forgotten to test for fear when charging and stuff. Yeah, but they're unstable. So essentially what that means is, however much you fail your leadership test by, modified by the combat result, is how many further wounds that unit suffers in combat. So you got to be a bit careful about charging in characters, because they can just die to combat res. So that's not so good. The other special rules, so there's a bunch of universal special rules that applies to models with the undead rule. You also have Dark Vitality, which these are not subject to the Death of a General rule. So basically vampires, Blood Knights, they don't really suffer when the vampire dies, so they get to stick around for a bit longer. You can actually resurrect Blood Knights now, which is quite cool. Cleaving Blow is basically the same as Killing Blow, I think. Yeah, I'll check that out in a sec. And then Indomitable, yeah, so they lose fewer wounds based on the value. So if you lose combat by like 3, you take your leadership test, you fail your leadership test by 3 after modifying for combat result, and then if you got Indomitable 2, you only lose 1 further wound, because Indomitable 2, it's how much you fail by that matters. Although, to be honest, because of Unbreakable, it might as well affect the combat result, but whatever. I mean, it's same mathematically, but okay, that's how they've decided they want to do the accounting on that particular basis. Yeah, friendly units within the battle standard bearer's command range reduce the number of wounds lost to unstable by D3. That's amazing. Everybody needs a battle standard bearer. Like, that's just, it's an auto include for 25 points. That's fantastic. So, characters, they start off with, I thought Vampire Lords were first. Yeah, they're here. So they have Vampire Lords, and then they talk about Death of a Count. Death of a General. Alright, whatever. So Vampire Count is the top one. Vampire Thrall is the second one. They're allowed to be wizards, and they also seem to be allowed to take heavy armor. Now, I'm not sure if you upgrade it to a wizard and you take heavy armor, it can't cast spells, because that's like a universal rule about wizards. They can't take spells. So that's interesting. Now, what I talked about in terms of upgrading them is they've got Dark Vitality, they're flammable, obviously, the vampires, they die less, they've got access to the Law of Undeath, these are Vampire Counts and Necromantic Undead, as are Vampire Thralls. I'm just trying to see, Vampire Thralls have Banner of the Count. Okay, so you can't make a Vampire Count a Battle Standard Bearer. Your Vampire Thrall can be a Battle Standard Bearer. A Vampire Thrall. It's got to be a Vampire Thrall that's the Battle Standard Bearer. Okay, well that makes that a pretty simple choice. You're going to have one of them. You've got Necromancers. Master Necromancer is level 3 or 4. Acolyte is level 2 or 3. Level 4 Wizard costs, therefore, 160 points. You can't make a Vampire Lord a level 4 Wizard, although there is an interesting thing here with the vampires. In fact, I'll talk about that for a second. The interesting thing about vampires is these vampiric powers, and this is how you kind of build the old characters. So I'll just talk about Vampire Lords for a bit, because this is where like the flavour comes in terms of the overall army composition. Where the heck have the mounts gone? There's a zombie dragon. Now, this is where you give your vampires saves, because a zombie dragon counts as full plate armor. So if you get your oh my gosh, what was his name? Zacharias the Ever-Living, or the Accursed or something, which was the old special Necrarch Vampire Lord with draconic scales. On a zombie dragon, he's got a 4-up save because of the zombie. So you take the best armor save between the rider and the mount. Okay, so that's pretty good. Terrorgeist is it a mount? It is a mount. I don't think normal vampires can take it. Where's the goddamn mounts? There's a Skeletal Steed Nightmare. There's an Abyssal Terror, which a Vampire Count can be mounted on, and this is how you create like Neferata. You put her on this thing, which is an Abyssal Terror, which in the old world was a bit like a kind of a super dead, unhealthy kind of Pegasus sort of thing. But Abyssal Terror is page 22, so let's have a look at that. So page 22. I know I'm jumping around a bit, but you kind of need to when you're building an army, and this is kind of how I think when I'm building an army. I like to build my heroes first and work out what they can do, and then build an army around them. Sometimes I go bottom up actually, and I look, well, I want some of those units, and anyway, so it's got a poisonous tail, which is one of its attacks have to do that. Get +4. It's got scaly skins that counts as heavy armor. So there you go, heavy armor. It's got some stomp and all the rest. But yeah, that's how you start to build out something like that. You could, I suppose, count those mounts as like a zombie dragon, but it's kind of difficult because they're a bit feeble looking in comparison with a zombie dragon. So so here's your vampiric powers. You can take multiple up to the limit that you're allowed. So a vampire lord can take 100 points of vampiric powers and magic items of up to 100. A strigoi can take vampiric powers up to 75 and magic up to 75. and they're the only ones that can take vampiric powers. You can also mount like a vampire count on a mortis engine and cool stuff like that, which essentially turns it into a chariot, and the mortis engine itself has like an armor save. Where's the mortis engine? You can chuck like I mean, there's so much flexibility in this list in terms of like writing whatever undead list you want. It's absolutely fantastic, and it's really difficult to talk about because there are so many cool options. Now anyway, back to these vampiric powers. So you can have +1 modifier to wounds, which is pretty cool, an extra wound on a vampire count, especially if it's on like a zombie dragon or something. That's pretty good. Beguile, this is like Neferata. It's got written all over it, so you got to take a leadership test before making any rolls to hit. If the test is failed, only rolls of natural 6 will hit. Remember, you've also got to take another leadership test for fear if you're outnumbered by her and all the other undead stuff that's in you. So you might be -1 to hit because of I've got my leg stuck. It might be -1 to hit because of that. What was the other? Yeah, you probably almost all your vampires are going to have no, each vampiric power may only be chosen once per army, sorry, but you're going to take this on at least one of them because you can heal fell bats, bat swarms and dire wolves with this, which is pretty good. You can take it, so if you've got a level 2 wizard, again this is kind of like your Neferata, you take Master of the Black Arts, so she becomes level 3, so you take that and Beguile, and you're getting quite close to Neferata, and you could probably upgrade her further with like Dark Acolyte, and that's 100 points, you know, and that's your Neferata sort of built. And then magic items, she's got a magic weapon that heals her, so there you go, you got Blood Drinker, that helps heal her, and she should have not Crown of the Damned. Oh, they haven't got like she's got like she used to have like a magic artifact like the Chalice. Oh no, sorry, that's Isabella von Carstein. She had like the Chalice of Healing or something or other. But you got a Potion of Healing anyway in your core stuff, which gives you D3. You know, in the core magic items in the core rulebook, there is an enchanted item that allows you to heal D3 wounds once per turn. So that's kind of already there in the universal items. So you can really fit out your heroes in this list exactly, you know, as you want to. So there's tons of flexibility, and that's brilliant. But it doesn't, if you really do like tank someone up so they are a bit like a Mortarch, then it's going to be quite expensive because you've got your vampire count that's 160 points, you add another 60, so it's 220, you've got 100 points of vampiric powers, so that's 320. You're probably going to end up with 70 or so points of magic artifacts, maybe even 100, so you're up to like 400, maybe 420. And where are the mount options? Page 22, and 420 plus the Abyssal Terror, which is on a reasonably big place, so 420, so that's about a quarter of your army on creating something that's a bit like a Mortarch. So that's going to sink, you know, a lot of points, a lot of points. Okay, so that's them. That Necromancers get this invocation of Nehek, which allows it to attempt to. So essentially, the Necromancer takes a leadership test, leadership 7 and 8, which isn't great, but takes a leadership test using their own leadership, so they can't use General's Inspiring Presence. Single friendly unit that has Necromantic Undead recovers a number of lost wounds. So big stuff recovers a single wound. Monstrous, heavy cav, blah 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 blah, recover a number of wounds equal to this character's level of wizardry. So if you got a level 4 wizard, it recovers 4 wounds. So that's pretty useful for some some of the stuff in the book, but I don't think you can recover 4 wounds with anything in that category. I stand to be corrected, but I don't think you can. Swarms have war beasts, level of wizardry +1, so yeah, so recovering a number of wounds equal to, I'm pretty certain you can only recover wounds up to the maximum recover wounds. And I'm pretty certain that means that they get resurrected. So if you've got war beasts, which would be dire wolves, which are basically undead doggos, you recover wounds and then resurrect dead ones back from the grave. So actually level 4 on heavy cavalry, you could resurrect hypothetically 2 blood knights a turn or more. Necromantic undead. So do blood knights, where are they gone? Do blood knights have, are they, yeah, next, so they have 1 wound, and they do have necromantic undead, see there, so you can resurrect them with a necromancer. Given the fact you can give them full plate, so essentially a 2-up save, I mean, that's pretty nasty. So Necromancer is going to be pretty much an auto include, and you can stick them on something. Strigoi Ghoul Kings. This is very flavourful and characterful. However, compared with the other vampires and the abilities of a Necromancer, they're going to be priority number 3, but they are quite cool. Hex Wraiths have this spectral scythe which has no armor save. They are ethereal, so they can only be hurt by magic weapons, so that's pretty useful, especially up against dwarves that are, I know they're Grom rule weapons, generally speaking are magical weapons, but that could be pretty nasty against some units there. Yeah, and you can heal them, but obviously once it's dead you can't heal it back from nothing because you have to have a unit to do the heal on. So you got a White King and a White Lord, so you can bring back your old White King that I forgot the name of, that used to be a Chaos Lord and was resurrected after he decided to do a Dark Pact with Nagash, that I can't remember the name of. He's on Made to Order at the moment. I think I might get one. Is he on Made? No, he's not on Made to Order. I saw one on eBay, but yeah. Well, Krell, love orange soda. Where that came from. Yeah, but I mean, White Kings are pretty cool. Yes, so a White Lord can also be upgraded to Battle Standard Bearer and get the same thing as a vampire. Why? Whatever. Why do they have the 2 rules? Can you? So this one, where does it say you upgraded to a Battle Standard Bearer? A White Lord that was upgraded to a Battle Standard. Where does it say? Presumably it says in army selection you're allowed a single Vampire Thrall or White Lord can be upgraded to BSB. So you've got a rule here which is the same as the other one down there. That's a bit weird. I don't know why they put that in 2 places. That seems a bit like a bit of an oversight. This is not cumulative with Indomitable, which reduces wounds, and that's exactly what it says there. So there's absolutely no difference. So why it's replicated and why that's not just BSB's ability, I don't know. Tomb Banshees have a Terror and a Wailing Dirge. Wailing Dirge is actually pretty nasty, and terror being caused by a tiny, lone character that you can't shoot particularly easily is, and especially Tomb Banshees, you could just put one in a unit of Skeleton Warriors, and now basically the Skeleton Warriors cause terror for 90 points. I mean, that's pretty nasty. If we go to their artifacts, which are not at the end, like in other Books, Wailing Dirge. Where the hell's Wailing Dirge? That's Vampiric Powers. Where's there? I can't find it. I'm sure we'll find it at some point. Where was I? There's just so much stuff in this. It's a bit like it's very much like the old like Vampire Counts book. It's just there's loads of options. It's all over the place. It's really difficult to see what's really going to be of much benefit. A Strigoi Ghoul King maybe on a Terrorgeist. Okay. So he could have a Zombie Dragon with a Vampire Count, a Zombie Dragon with a Master Necromancer, and a Terrorgeist with a Strigoi Ghoul King. I'm not sure you could afford all of them for 1,000 points, but you can do like a really cool Monster Mash sort of thing. And you could take like a super heavy, Vampire Count on a Zombie Dragon with tons of interesting like lance attacks and stuff like that, and kit him out like a Blood Knight. Like a blood. What were they called? Blood Dragon. Yeah. Yeah. Nightmares are just barded with like extra strength and weapon skill. So yeah, Nightmares are like demonish undead steeds, whereas skeletal steeds are like proper undead steeds. Whereas these are a bit more fleshy with like red eyes and stuff. They're a bit like chaos steeds but undead demon-y, whatever. Graveguard have implacable defense, which is a bit like it's a bit of a weird rule. So a unit with this rule in close order, equipped with and choose to use shield. So you got to use your shields, not your great weapons. May choose not to give ground should it lose a round of combat. So if it loses a round of combat and it uses shields, you don't have to get pushed back by 2 inches. If the winning side has more than double the unit strength, it can't use this rule. So it's a bit like Shield Wall, but you can use it all the time. I think Shield Wall is no, it's not, is it? I mean, Shield Wall, I think, is the same, isn't it? That's, where are special rules? There we go. Special rules. Once per game. So Shield Wall is once per game. So this is essentially Shield Wall, but you can use it as many times as you like, as long as you've actually used shields. So Graveguard are alright. I think Strength 4, Toughness 4 is pretty good. Relatively low initiative and weapon skill. 11 points. They're not that expensive, really. You can give them implacable defense. You have to pay extra for that, and you can give them drilled, which actually on this kind of unit might be quite useful. But if you're giving them all of that, you're up to like 40. So they're up to like they're costing the same as Chaos Warriors, really. I mean, you like all undead, you sacrifice initiative and skill at battle with Unbreakable. But with a bit of crumbling, so it's difficult to like compare them points wise. We'll only really see one once we start seeing tournaments. Skeleton Warriors are Skeleton Warriors, cheap as chips. Not really massively effective at doing everything, but like I said, for an additional 90 points in a big block of Skeleton Warriors, you can make them cause terror, which is pretty nasty. Zombies are again cheap, rubbish. They will die quickly. They don't have any like cool rules apart from the newly dead, which is elsewhere in the book. In this PDF, sorry. Crypt Ghouls are your traditional ghouls. They've got toughness 4 as they used to, so they're a bit more sturdy than other stuff, but they have no armor. They've got regen, but again, like everything else, they're flammable. So you've got flaming attacks, they don't get the regen. So, and they've got poison attacks, which is pretty nasty. They've only got hand weapons, but they do have a decent chunk of attacks. So, you know, the skirmishers, so they're hard to hit with shooting. They've got a reserve move, which is a pretty useful ability because it allows you to do other moves, and like there's other movement shenanigans you can do with them. Just to read out the rule. Special rules are sort of about... God, I keep losing where special rules are. It's after the main rules, but before weapons, isn't it? Special rules. Reserve move. Unless it charged, march, or fled during the movement phase, units with a special rule may make a reserve move at the end of the shooting phase after all shooting has been resolved in its turn. So can't march, but can manoeuvre normally. So you can move once, and then shooting phase happens, and then you move again. I mean, I'm not sure why you'd want to move after you shoot with Crypt Ghouls, unless you can. I suppose actually you could put like your Team Banshee in there for another 90 points. So you got a terror-causing unit of skirmishers that can wail at stuff and do a bit of damage. So that's possibly an option. Your Crypt Horrors are monstrous infantry. They're like the big chunky ghouly things. They've got lots of wounds. They're pretty tough, but again, so that's their defensive stat, is their toughness. They don't really have much protection apart from regen. Bat swarms are, bat swarms. Just stuff that gets in the way and dies, like all swarms. Vargeists are essentially Crypt Ghouls with wings. So, they've got Armor Bane 2 and AP 2 and Strength 5 and loads of attacks. So they're potentially, if they're all 6s to wound, they're essentially 4 AP, which is awesome. And they've got Fly 9, so they're pretty manoeuvrable around the table. Vargeists were always really nasty. Then you got Fell Bats, which are just big bats. Again, they're kind of like... don't know how to describe them really, but they've always been kind of like almost like a different form of screen. They're not Vargeists, which are like shock cavalry sort of who occupy that kind of shock cavalry role, but Fellbats kind of, because of they got swift stride, you can like march them 20 inches on the first turn. They can skirmish as well, so you march them 20 inches on the first turn, and then in the next turn you can pretty much charge into some war machines. So Fellbats are kind of like for that job, but if your opponent doesn't really have war machines or lone characters, they're pretty rubbish at anything else. I mean, they do sort of allow you to get a charge, sort of allow you to negate rank bonuses, perhaps, if they've managed to keep to a unit size of 3 up. So because they're monstrous infantry, they only need 3 to take a rank off to disorder the defender when defending. But again, they're quite cheap though, so like a unit of 4 or 5 of them isn't going to set you back a lot. You've then got Spirit Hosts, which are ethereal, which can cause some factions serious headaches. They are quite expensive though, but 4 wounds with ethereal, I mean that's pretty good. So you can use the general's leadership on these swarms for some reason. That's a rule that they've decided to bring in. And you can use the hold your ground of the battle standard bearer. So these are kind of like more battle line-y style swarms that kind of act as a screen but are a bit tougher. Blood Knights are wicked, like loads of attacks, high strength. They're basically chosen, chaos chosen, and roughly the same points and same move and more or less the same abilities in that they've got counter charge and first charge. So counter charge means that if they get charged by cavalry or chariots or flyers, I think, they're allowed to move a little bit and therefore add a bit to their initiative. Actually, initiative is quite... Yeah, they are just pretty much the same stat line as Chaos Chosen Knights, aren't they? I think they're one less leadership than Chaos Chosen Knights. But then again, they're unbreakable. And yeah, they got the 6-up regen. They got martial pride, which means every model can issue and accept challenges, a bit like Grail Knights, basically. Grail Knights have their Living Saints rule, and martial pride is basically the same as that. And hand weapons get magic attacks and AP1, which again is the same as Chaos Chosen. So they've more or less picked the same. Given them the same as Chaos Chosen. Black Knights are sort of slightly rubbish cavalry, but again slightly cheap for what you get. And they do have cleaving blow on the riders, which actually could be pretty good. Dire Wolves are, dire wolves. They're just doggos, get in the way. Strength 4 on the charge, this is pretty nice, but, then they're going to die. I mean, they've got leadership 3, so if they lose a round of combat, the rest of them just crumble. They've only got 1 wound, so... Yeah. Hex Wraiths are essentially ethereal cavalry, so sort of good, but also sort of terrible. Again, you need to make sure that you put them into the right unit so that they, so that they can't be killed due to ethereal. They've got swift, but they don't have stuff like first charge and counter charge, so so if it moves over a unit by flying, because they've got fly 8, they've also got a normal move of 8, but so they can choose to fly or not. But if they move over a unit during the remaining moves, so you can march over a unit, and the enemy unit suffers 1 strength 4 hit, no armor saves. For each model in this unit. So you move over a unit, if you got 5 of them, you can do like 5 strength 4 hits with no armor saves, which is again pretty nasty. They are sort of costly, so they're not costly for this ability, but they're only toughness 3 and they don't have any armor, not even barding, so they have no armor save, just a 6 at regen, but can only be hurt by magical stuff. So it's really difficult to assess how good they are. I sense that people will take them and then they will die a lot and then they won't take them anymore. That ability is really cool, especially with a 16-inch fly move, so you could hypothetically fly over an opponent's unit. They are open order, so you can make a pivot at the end of that fly move for free, and but only 90 degrees. So you move over a unit, do a load of strength 4, no armor save attacks to that unit, and then you can flank something next turn, maybe, if you don't die. There's a lot of weird movement shenanigans going on with vampires, isn't there? You got a Coven Throne, which is it's only as a character's mount. You get a bound spell, power level 2. This model may reroll any 1s to hit, which is okay because it's got a decent amount of hits. So remember, you've just put a vampire count or whatever on it. So it's a heavy chariot with a good amount of impact hits that are AP2 because it's a heavy chariot. It's got fly 8, so it's pretty maneuverable. It is, however, a large target, so it's pretty shootable. And it's got this ghoulish glamour ability built in, which I think it kind of always has, but that's pretty cool. I like that. The Spirit Horde have lances, so D6 attacks at strength 5, AP2, armor bane 1 on the charge is pretty nice. Only weapon skill 3, but still could do a lot of damage if you include the impact hits. So it's but it is quite costly at 210 points. It's certainly one of the more costly chariots available. Even a Gore Beast chariot is only like 130, and arguably a Gore Beast chariot might be slightly better, apart from maybe. Yeah, I don't know. It does. I suppose you can put a vampire count on there that's a wizard and benefit from the 4 armor save. So it does provide a bit of extra. So it's basically giving full plate to a wizard, which again is pretty good. Then you've got the Mortis engine, which basically this Mortis engine. I know it can go. Yeah, vampires can go on that as well. So again, it's a 4-up save. It gives Necromantic Undead +1 to movement and initiative, so that also affects Blood Knights as well, remember, so they go up to move 8, initiative 5, so that's pretty good for that. It's just a bit of a it applies +1 to casting rolls, but to everybody within its command range, and makes miscasts worse. It is a chariot. It is also a large target, so its command range is always 18. I think command range 18 is about large target rather than monster. I think if you're on a large target, you get an 18-inch command range. So that's a pretty useful thing. It's not too expensive, considering what it does. So I actually quite like that. I think actually Mortis Engine's one of the better things in the list. You got a Corpsecar, which is a level 1 wizard, and they've got, some anti-spelly sort of attacks, or you can give it a warped tintinabulation. A warped tintinabulation, which essentially allows you to boost the invocation of the Hex a little bit, and also reduce the number of wounds lost due to unstable by 1. That's pretty good, but it's not cumulative with Indomitable, but friendly units within 15 inches of this model, so you could take multiple. And the Battle Standard Bearer, so you could be like D3 +3 wounds that you ignore to unstable. How do you select a Corpsecar? Where are they? 0 to 3. Okay, so you could be like 3 plus D3. Ooh, that's pretty nasty. Is it command range? Just 15 inches. Well, it's on a pretty big base. And so you end up with like 3 wizards with that. Oh. Because they obviously know, so this is stackable. Friendly units within 15 inches reduce the number of wounds lost due to unstable by 1. So if you have 3 of these, it's by 3. This one says that within 15 inches of 1 or more models. So they're not going to put that there and not there. 15 inches of 1 or more of this model, if it didn't stack, they'd have that in there. So that means this doesn't stack, but this does. They're not going to have not done that deliberately. So that's obviously there on purpose. So it's pretty interesting. But 3 of them would cost you like 345 for something that just reduces the amount that die. I mean, in a heavy Necromancer heavy loads of zombies and stuff list, that would be pretty useful. I'm not sure otherwise. Black Coach is an amazing model. I absolutely love the new Black Coach. In fact, I really like the old Black Coach too. That was pretty cool, especially with, in the back. Absolutely wicked. It obviously causes terror because it's pretty terrifying. May become... So didn't you have to... No, you don't even have to roll anything. So you can make it incorporeal. So it becomes ethereal, gets fly 10. But it loses its impact hits if it's in ethereal. I mean, that's pretty good. It's close order though. So, I mean, ethereal fly 10... I'd have made it ethereal fly 10 and open order to give it a bit more movement flexibility. Because as chariots go, it's not great for 205 points. I suppose it does cause terror, which actually is pretty good. No, I don't know. It's really difficult to work out how this is all going to play because of all like the terror and the fear dynamics. I mean, just exactly how powerful are they? Zombie dragons are great. Obviously, does loads of damage. You know, whatever gives the rider a 4-up save. I mean, that's same as other mounts, and not that expensive as well. 215 points. You know, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Oh yeah, and enemy units are just -1 initiative, so effectively you're +1 initiative, but whatever. And adds a ton of wounds to your your +5 wounds, so that's nice. Terrorgeist adds again another +5 wounds. It's slightly cheaper than a zombie dragon, and it only has light armor. Yeah, so that's the difference really. It does a little bit more damage. It does a little bit more damage. It's got a better regen. Stomp attacks are the same. This one's So as a mount, I suppose it doesn't really matter because a Ghoul King is going to be on this, so they're better in combat than vampires anyway. Unless you like fully kit out your vampire count to be like a super heavy combat-y vampire count. Oh, and it's got infested, so when it loses its last wound, it just explodes into bats. Just kill everything. You've got an Abyssal Terror, which again is a mount. It's a bit like it's a winged thing like that causes terror, which is awesome. And very cheap for what it does. Like, it's an extra 4 wounds, extra toughness to your vampire count, so your vampire count becomes toughness 6, probably goes up to like, is it 8 wounds or something like that, which is, pretty good. Does become a large target, but that kind of affects your your stuff. And then you've got Vargulfs, which are like monstrous creatures, which kind of just flit around the battlefield. Very, very cheap again for like causing terror. Terror is a really interesting ability. So you get that charging in your flank. It's probably going to negate your flank bonus. It's going to make you -1 to your leadership, which is going to increase the chance that you actually break rather than just fall back in good order. It's got counter charge, which is pretty nasty. It's got frenzy. It's got bestial fury, which is that the one where you like test at the start of the phase and then get extra stuff? Bear with. War machines. Oh, I keep losing the special bloody rolls. There they are. I say that and then immediately find them. Bestial. Oh, idiot. It's right there. It's just below it. Enemy units cannot go. Oh, so if you outflank it or hit it in the rear, it doesn't care. So it likes it from odd angles. Vampiric powers, we've talked about. There's a lot of terror in vampires, which I think is really, really flavoursome and really characterful. I really like that. It gives them a lot of flavour. You got some pretty cool like weapons and stuff. The Dread Lance is like, if you want to get your Prince Vordrai model and whack it in on a big base. Not sure that it'd fit, but if you want to whack it on a big base, there you go. Strength 2, AP 2, Armor Bane 1, which is magical attacks. Oh, okay, so it's basically a lance that does magical attacks and can reroll hits, which sounds a bit like Prince Vordrai, doesn't it? Because he can do exactly the same thing. Flayed Holbeck, that's Prince Vordrai's sort of thing as well, isn't it? It kind of allows you to build him out a little bit. What was the other thing that I thought was pretty cool? Screaming Banner. I think this is awesome. So if you're trying to charge this unit, you've got to roll an extra d6 and discard the lowest result. What that means is one of your results is likely to be like a 6. So the chance of you not being able to charge a unit with a Screaming Banner like increases exponentially. Not exponentially, but you know, not even geometrically, to be honest, but it does increase a lot. Standard, get the reserve move. I don't get why the reserve move is useful. Maybe I'm being thick, but like, make it a move and then make a move after the shooting. I mean, that's only really useful if you shoot, isn't it? Because you just march. I suppose you could do 2 maneuvers, can't you? So like one before shooting and one after. But then there must be a use case for reserve move, or else stuff wouldn't have it. Like a 4 at ward save is amazing, but like stupidity is really not, because there's no way of re-rolling that. So you know, Von Carstein Ring is brilliant because basically it says when the wearer of the Von Carstein Ring loses their last wound, Carstein, I think it should be Carstein, loses their last wound roll. So essentially the last wound might last forever because you basically get a 2-up ward that isn't a ward. Oh no, sorry, idiot, single use. So I mean, for 40 points, I suppose that might be I don't know. I think you're on. Yeah, I don't know whether that's worth 40 points. Like, it's probably worth 20. It's definitely worth 20, but 40 seems a bit much considering there's other stuff you can take, like a Flayed Holbeck, which gives you a 6 at ward save. You know, which if you're on like a dragon or something with like 8 or 9 wounds, 6 at ward save gives you an extra 2 wounds ish statistically. So that's better than just giving you an extra 1 on, well, nearly an extra 1 statistically. That's wicked. Extra D3 to weapon skill. Again, though, 40 points is quite expensive. And then we've been through their rules. Oh, yeah, Newly Dead is for zombies. So if you resurrect the Fallen, you can essentially expand the unit. So, okay, so here's the thing that says, first, any characters that join the unit are healed. Characters that have been deaded can't be brought back. Second, models with more than 1 wound are healed. Then the champion is resurrected, and then rank and file. You can't like expand your front rank to an unlimited width with this. With resurrections, so it goes up to, so if you just got a normal unit of infantry, you've got 2 left, you roll to recover, let's say 6 of them for whatever reason. So the 2 that were left, you put 3 in the front rank, you've then got a full front rank, and then you put the other 3 in the second rank. Then we've got Van Helsing's Dance Macabre. So these are like the signature spells that they can discard from, you know, their core thing. Raise Dead is pretty cool. So 2d3, 2d3 risen zombies within 12 inches of the model. I really like this because, like I said, it just allows you to pop up like screens that aren't worth any victory points, and again, Newly Dead, so then you can raise it as an enchantment and then raise more to it. So you raise like a little unit of zombies and it suddenly grows into a much bigger unit of zombies that aren't worth any victory points. So that's pretty cool. And they have standard zombie profile. I think that's standard zombie profile. Reserve move again. I suppose actually reserve move is really useful for like if you're like really quick, like no, like flamey Hex Wraiths, flamey Knights of Death, because every time they move over a unit, that must also be a reserve move, mustn't it? Oh my god. That's what it's for. I've just figured that out. I'm sorry it took me so long. Hex Wraiths. Where the goddamn... That's the last thing I need to look at, isn't it? Hex Wraiths. Flame attack. Spectral. During the... okay, so it's not that good. So you move over a unit in remaining moves and do a pivot because you've got open order. And then you can do a reserve move if you've cast that spell on it. And then move it again. So what would... Yeah, I mean, I need to think about this reserve move thing again, because it allows you to do another manoeuvre, doesn't it? That's the thing that I've not thought of. So you could move your Blood Knights, do a bit of a pivot, or like a little wheel at the end of them. Well, you could do a pivot of 90 degrees, couldn't you, and take up a little bit of their move. And then if they've got reserve move, you can do that again and like make some weird angles in your opponent's, so you can get around your opponent. Yeah. So that's cool. So that's the vampires. Thanks for watching. Comments down below if you think I'm an idiot, or if you think I'm not. Whatever. Feel free to do all the usual YouTubey things, and I'll see you again in the next one. Bye.